Hello everyone, welcome to Edukripa. Today we will be starting with the chapter heat. This will be the part 1 of the video. So what exactly is heat? We will understand what the basics of it and how the heat energy is transferred. Heat is basically a form of energy. Whenever a definition is asked, this should be the first statement. Heat is a form of energy. Heat always flows from hotter to colder objects. Heat always flows from hotter end of an object to colder end of an object, or hotter region to colder region. This is the basic principle of how heat flows. What does heat cause? Heat causes temperature changes. It may be increase in temperature or decrease in temperature. So now we may always have heard hot objects, cold objects. We bifurcate some objects as hot and cold. What exactly is hot and cold? Hot means hot objects usually have more heat energy inside them. That's why to touch they feel as hot. Next, cold. Cold objects have less heat energy. Means the object, if we say that it is cold, it is usually has less heat energy, so it feels cold. Hot and cold are both sensations that our senses feel. So hot objects have more heat energy, cold objects have less heat energy. Now, how do we measure temperature? First, what is temperature? Temperature is the measure of how hot or cold an object is, or hotness and coldness of an object. We usually measure temperature using a device called as thermometer. Thermometer, this is just a pictorial representation of a thermometer. You will see certain readings inside it, and there will be the unit of how what we measure is degree Celsius. We'll explore it further. Next, there are two types of thermometer basically that we will explore in this chapter. One is clinical thermometer and another one is laboratory thermometer. Clinical thermometer is used to measure the temperature of our body, and it usually ranges from 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius. You may ask that, you may have known that 32 degrees Celsius is the normal temperature of human body. 32 degrees Celsius is the normal temperature of the human body. And one more thing is 28 degrees Celsius is the room temperature. Okay. Next is laboratory thermometer. Clinical thermometer is with respect to us. If you want to measure how the temperature of an organism or any human being, we use clinical thermometer. If we want to measure the temperature of an object, does clinical thermometer work? It won't be as accurate as the clinical thermometer because its range is from minus 10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. Why is the range of the laboratory thermometer minus 10 degrees Celsius? If you ever try measuring temperature of the ice, for example, if you have set freezer to minus 10 degrees Celsius, and if you want to measure it, how will you get to know that it is minus 10 degrees Celsius? In that case, laboratory thermometer comes to use. If you measure any object's temperature with laboratory thermometer, it will be more accurate compared to clinical thermometer. Next is transfer of heat. How does heat transfer? What are the modes? Modes of transfer of heat. How does heat transfer from one end to another end? I already told you that heat always flows from hotter region to colder region. So how does this exactly work? In this video, we will mainly explore conduction, but we will get to know the definition of all three. First is conduction. Conduction always moves through solid by direct contact. If you directly contact a solid object with heat, it catches heat in one end and it transfers to other end. This is conduction. Heat moving through a solid object is called conduction. Convection usually happens in the fluids or liquids in which circulating of current happens. Means one part of the fluid is heated and it raises up. Next, the part which is not as much heated as the fluid which went up, it comes down. This circular motion happens. That's why it's called as circulating current motion. So that is convection. Next is radiation. Radiation is what we get from the sun. Do you think there is any medium between sun and earth? But we still experience the heat. This happens because of the radiation. Heat travels through space as electromagnetic waves, but electromagnetic waves, you may or may not remember this term, but heat travels through space without any medium. This is called as radiation. Particularly, what is conduction? Heat moves through solid particles without any particle movement. Compared to convection, in conduction, heat moves through solid objects without any particle movement. You won't notice any particle movement in the conduction. But if you ever see boiling of an water or heating up of water, usually particles come up. Usually small bubbles come up while heating up the water. So you may compare it with that as what this definition says. Heat moves through solids without particle movement. Next, what are conductors of heat? Conductors in general are the objects which allow the heat pass through them easily. Okay. Conductors are the substances which allows heat pass through them easily. Certain examples of conductors are copper, aluminum, iron and steel. These are all the substances which we use to make utensils. Why do we make utensils using these objects only? Because they are good conductors of heat. Copper is an excellent conductor of heat, and aluminum, because it is lightweight and it is good for cooking, aluminum is used. Iron, you may have usually seen in olden days iron used to be more common and copper used to be more common. And steel is an alloy of iron and several other metals. This has high strength, it is durable, it also conducts heat in good manner. That's why it is also considered as a good conductor of heat. Next are insulators. Bad conductors of heat are nothing but insulators. Insulators don't conduct heat as much as conductors. So these can be called as bad conductors of heat, or materials which do not allow heat pass through them easily are called as insulators. Now, certain examples are wood, plastic, rubber and other household items which you usually see. Wood is one of the examples for bad conductors or insulators of heat. Plastic, rubber of course, and household items. Now we'll see how conductors and insulators work together to make our life easier. How do they do that? You may have seen that the utensil itself is usually made up of some metal which is good conductor of heat, but the handle which we use it to hold is usually made up of insulator. It may be usually fiber or it may be wood. Why is that? We can't hold a heated up object, for example the utensil, so that's why it is coated with an insulator to make it easier for us to hold that utensil. This is how metal is good conductor and insulator is bad conductor, of course. So that's why they coexist in a utensil to make cooking easier. This was all about the heat chapter part 1 of this video. See you in the next video. Thank you.